Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Wednesday. We're halfway through the week now. That game against Aston Villa on Saturday is edging ever closer. We're going to talk about that game in today's show. Briefly, at the end of yesterday's show, I was responding to a comment from someone who was saying that, look, Urine Timber has to start against Villa. And I spoke about it briefly at the end of the show. And I thought I was going to open that up a little bit more today because I was thinking about it. And I think some of the big decisions facing Mikel, of all of them, going into Saturday's game, I think the Timber, or I don't know, you call it the Urine Timber decision or the left back decision more specifically, I think it's going to be a really, really interesting one. I think one he's going to have to get right if Arsenal are going to get the job done at Aston Villa on Saturday. So I thought we'd talk about that, open it up, get your views on it. Of course, as always, going to talk about the PFA Player of the Year Awards, which was announced yesterday. Arsenal getting 5 players in the PFA Player of the Team for last season. First time since the Invincibles. That has happened. We'll talk about Mikel Merino as well as the Espanyol president flies to London to try and get that deal done. Of course, got lots of questions and comments from you guys as well to get stuck into. So quickly, just before we start on focusing on the Villa game, just on last night's PFA Awards, 5 Arsenal players make the PFA Player of the Season, Team of the Season, which is just, shows exactly just how good Arsenal were last season. Remember, how these are all voted for. David Raya, it makes it in goal. Gabriel and Saliba at centre-back. Mike Odegaard and Declan Rice also in there. No Ben White, no Bukayo Saka. Easily could have had shouts of getting in there as well. But then there's other players as well. I think it was Kyle Walker made it as a right back, didn't he? But Cole Palmer, I think of the season Cole Palmer had, he didn't make it in the team. He had a midfield of Rodri, Rice and Odegaard, the forward line of Haaland, Foden and Watkins. But yeah, really good night for Arsenal yesterday. You can see the picture if you're watching on YouTube of all 5 players with their awards last night, and congratulations to them. And I think in the midst of all this sort of transfer frenzy that we have as we get towards the end of the window, as concerns are beginning to rise that Arsenal haven't done too much business, I think this, when you sort of take a little step back from it all and try and escape all the madness that comes with transfer season, kind of is a good reminder of just how good Arsenal's current squad is. The fact they had 5 players in the team of the season, and there's a pretty good argument that maybe 2 more could have been in there as well when you look at Ben White and Bukayo Saka. So just a little bit of a perspective maybe in terms of the madness that was going on with transfers. So congratulations to all of those players. Right, let's focus on the game against Villa. Love to get your views on this as well in terms of who you think should be starting this game against Villa. Like I said, I responded to a comment yesterday from someone, I forgot their name, apologies for that, who was saying Timber has to start against Villa. And I agreed with that. And I still do agree with that. I think it's a really important decision Mikel is going to make. I think Zinchenko's had a good start to the season if you count pre-season as well. Yes, there's been a few sloppy bits in that, but there's other players have done that as well. You get that at the start of the season, but on the whole, I think Zinchenko's looked pretty good. Looked pretty good in the 2 warm-up game at the Emirates. Scored obviously in one of them, and I thought he had a decent enough game at the weekend as well. But we saw Timber come on, and although he was a bit sloppy in possession at one point, got robbed, and that led to Wolves having a shot. It was a good cameo from Urien Timber. Calafiori, of course, is there as well. When you look at that left back position and you look at Villa's strengths and the players that they've got out wide, specifically Leon Bailey, who we know is a very, very good player. And I thought he played well against West Ham from what I saw of the Villa game at the weekend. That is going to be such a crucial part of stopping what Aston Villa do, is stopping Leon Bailey, creating that width, getting in, getting his shots away, getting balls into the box. And for all of Zinchenko's good points, and you guys know I am quite a big Zinchenko fan. I know a lot of you aren't, but I still think Zinchenko brings a lot to the party. I think he's a very good footballer, very gifted footballer. But this is one of those games where you look at it and think, it's not really a Zinchenko game for me. I'd much rather have just that extra little bit of stability, that extra little bit of defensive strength. I don't think Calafiori is going to be ready yet. I'm not expecting him to get thrown straight into the lineup. It's going to, I imagine, after the first international break of the season, that could be when we start to see Calafiori given a little bit more game time. So for me, I think Timber is the right player for the game at the weekend. There's other decisions Mikel has to make. Of course, I think he's going to stick with Kai Havertz up front. I'd be very surprised if he makes any changes and brings Gabriel Jesus in. I think the midfield is probably going to be the same. I know there's been lots of debate about Thomas Partey's performance. I didn't think it was that bad at the weekend. I know a lot of people think otherwise, but I still think Thomas will probably play that game, and that will leave Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard playing ahead of him, unless there's any other injuries. I think the big one is this left back situation. I think it's a big decision for Mikel to make. I think he'll go with Yuri Timber, but I'd love to get your thoughts on it. What would you be doing against Aston Villa? Who should play? Who shouldn't play? Give me your starting 11s. I know we're only at Wednesday, but there's plenty to talk about as we gear towards that game. And it is a massive game. Arsenal losing both games against Villa last season, of course. Revenge is going to be on their mind at Villa Park, and what a boost it would be ahead of the two really tricky looking away games coming up against Tottenham and Manchester City if they could go to Aston Villa, win, and just get a really good start to their away campaign in the Premier League. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Okay, team news-wise, it's looking pretty positive ahead of that game. Obviously, we saw Declan Rice at the PFA Awards last night. There was a little bit of concern after the Wolves games at the weekend when he went down clutching the back of his leg. I mean, I immediately turned to my dad in the stadium. I was like, oh, no, he's done his hamstring. Mikel calmed those fears a little bit after the game, didn't he? He said, no, I think it was just cramp. Arsenal then sort of put the message out that after initial tests, it was just cramp. It wasn't anything more serious. And then if you're watching on YouTube, you can see a picture from training yesterday. Declan Rice fully involved in that training session, so he'll be fine to play against Villa at the weekend, which is good news. Fabio Vieira also took full part in that training session yesterday at London Colney as well, so expect him to be in and around the squad, whether he makes the call. Now Arsenal have got a lot of players available to them. Some players have to miss out on a weekly basis now, but Fabio Vieira is fit after his recent injury issues as well. So good news for Arsenal on the injury front. Nothing really too serious. Of course, there is still no Tomiyasu and Kieran Tierney. Okay, on Mikel Merino, Espanyol's president has flown into England for talks with Arsenal to try and get this deal done. It's been a deal that's been dragging on a long time. I know we all get embroiled in these sagas, and I always do think to myself, do we, just because we pay more attention to Arsenal, which is understandable because we're all Arsenal fans, right? But because we pay more attention to Arsenal, do we just think that Arsenal's transfer deals take longer to complete than any other clubs because we're not really paying too much attention to what goes on at other clubs? And I always think that must be the case. But then this one does feel like it's just been going on forever and ever, and it hasn't really moved too far forward. This was always going to be the week, as I reported on Monday, that was going to be the week where things really started to move in terms of the deal for Moreno. And now the Espanyol president is over here to try. Did I say Espanyol? Sorry, Real Sociedad president. I don't know where Espanyol came from. I think it's because I'm thinking about Juan Garcia, the Espanyol goalkeeper. I've been talking about him recently. So yeah, Real Sociedad president, apologies, is over in London to try and get this deal done. Now, we know that Sociedad are trying to get as much money as possible. The public comments that they have made has made it very, very clear they want to do the best possible deal for Sociedad, which is totally understandable. He's their player. They're trying to get it. But he's only got a year left in his contract, so you can understand where Arsenal are like, well, hold on, we think he's valued at this sort of money. And it's time to get a compromise, basically, because we are running out of time. What is the date today? It is, I don't even have it on my watch, the 21st. So we've got 10 days left of the transfer window. The clock is beginning to tick here when it comes to Arsenal and Mikel Merino. You want to get this deal done as soon as possible. So hopefully, whatever these talks lead to now, it's just going to be a successful conclusion for all parties. You can come to some sort of agreement. I don't see Arsenal going to 40 million euros, maybe with, fairly significant add-ons. If Arsenal win the Champions League or things like that, that it could get to that. I'd be surprised if they hit that number or go close to that number without fairly significant add-ons, I have to say. But you just want to get this deal done sooner rather than later now, because even if he signs this week, we're on Wednesday, which is beginning to look unlikely. But if it was to happen this week, he's definitely not going to play any part in the Villa game. You would imagine he won't play any part against Brighton either. And then they'll go away for the international break. It's probably going to be after the international break that we'd see him play much of a part for Arsenal. So we're already into the season now. It does just feel like this is a deal you've got to get done. Really crucial time, I think, with these talks that are happening right now in London to get this deal over the line. Aaron here has got in touch on this very subject. He says, hey, Charles, saw the news that Arsenal is almost agreeing on a 40 million euro deal for Merino. I think this will spark debate, but 40 million for a 28-year-old with a 1 year left on his contract does not look like the best deal. To be honest, I understand he's highly rated and wanted Arteta, but I would rather spend more money and buy a younger midfielder, Bruno, although Newcastle will not sell. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not sure. I'll be surprised if Arsenal go to 40 million euros for him, unless it is that, as I was saying, the really sort of significant add-ons. I still think they'll look to try and get it a lot closer to the 30 million mark than the 40 million. I know he's got a year left in his contract. I know he's 28 or he's just about to turn 28. But I mean, he is a very good player as well. He's had a good Euros, which has helped strengthen Sociedad's hand a little bit. And I'm probably going to contradict myself a little bit when I say this, because on one hand, I've been saying, look, Arsenal need to hold out for as much money as you can for someone like Eddie Nketiah. You can't continue to look like you're a soft touch when it comes to selling players. But when it comes to buying players, I'm kind of the other way around. I just don't really care because it's not my money. I just don't really care. It's like I just want a good player to sign for Arsenal. So if it's going to be 30 million or 40 million, I'm just not overly bothered. And if this is the player, and this is more importantly, I suppose, this is a player that Arteta and Edu have identified as a player that they think can help really improve this team and improve this squad, then I trust them now, because they've got more decisions right than they've got wrong. So I trust their decision making. If this is who they've decided upon and this is who they think is worth the money and can improve things, then I'm happy to back them on that. But thank you very much for your comment there, Aaron. And we've got quite a bit of reaction here to the Eddie Nketiah stuff, as I was talking about just now, and what I was saying yesterday about Eddie and the position that Arsenal are taking. Now, it's interesting. Just before I started to record this, Fabrizio Romano has reported that Forest have sent an improved offer to Feyenoord for Jimenez, who we know is the other striker that they're looking at as well. Obviously, they had a bid rejected for Eddie Nketiah, and talks have been continuing on a potential second bid for that, but they have now bid for Feyenoord. Now, I was saying yesterday, is this a little bit of a ploy? You know, you've got two striker targets, so you've made it known that you want and you put bids in for. So if there's one that you really, really want, are you bidding for the other one just to try and freak the other club out, the selling club out, thinking, oh no, if we don't accept this offer, they're gonna raise their offer for Nketiah, and you know, are they playing that sort of game with Arsenal and Feyenoord at the moment? We'll have to wait and see. But they have, according to Fabrizio Romano, now raised their offer for Jimenez. So if that was to be accepted, what would that mean for Eddie Nketiah? You'd imagine it would mean that they wouldn't sign him. So we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. But Lucas says, I'd take 27.5 million for Eddie and add-ons. Ramsdale on loan with obligation to buy for 30 million. Also, there will be another Guna in the world come February, as we're expecting another baby. Let's hope in February we won't lose like when my daughter was born in January. Great show as always. Wattage, congratulations, Lucas, on that news. And yeah, hopefully the birth will be marked with a win rather than a loss. So 27.5 million you would take for Eddie. I still think 30 is the kind of number in my head that I think would be a good one. Eddie, I'd take 25 million plus add-ons, says Charlie. I'm not disappointed that we wanted 30 guaranteed earlier in the window, but this late stage, guaranteed 25 and extra Forest stay ups feels more than okay to me. Again, yeah, I probably wouldn't disagree, even though I still think 30, but 25 guaranteed with add-ons would be probably what you wouldn't say no, I think, at this late stage of the window. Ramsdale, no loan mover unless it has an obligation to buy. Absolutely. We've seen with Sambi and Tierney that loans with an option don't always end up with permanent moves at the end of the season. Yeah, I think if you're loaning Ramsdale out for a season, a keeper as good as Ramsdale, there has to be a very good loan fee involved. His wages need to be covered, and you need an obligation to buy him the following season, because it just makes no sense really otherwise for Arsenal. And back 8823 says, nobody will agree with me, but I'd keep Eddie this year. I'd wait till next summer, save the pennies and see how Sesko is doing, or spend big on a very special player like Williams or Leao. Well, if Feyenoord end up signing Jimenez, then Arsenal might well have to keep Eddie for a year. It just feels to me like the right year for Eddie Nketiah to go, the right summer. I just don't see him playing any football this summer. So if you don't sell him this season, so if you don't sell him this summer, then his value is only going to go down and down and down. And so I think there is interest in him this summer. We know that. We've seen that. You know, Arsenal are playing hardball at the moment when it comes to his fee. But I do think if he doesn't go this summer, it's just going to get harder and harder to sell, because I just don't see him playing much. You know, Havertz is the undoubted number 9 now. Then you've got Jesus. Then you've got Trossard. You know, and Nketiah is really fourth choice. He's not going to get many games apart from the odd game in a cup or two. So I would still think that this is the summer to let Eddie go. But thank you very much for your comment. Here's one from Gooners SG. Says, Charles, do you feel that Moreno... it's Merino, isn't it? I keep saying Moreno, but it's Merino. A backup goalkeeper, maybe Garcia and Calafiori, is good enough transfer window for where we are currently. I felt this summer we needed another ceiling raiser to Rice in a forward position to push us over the line and bring us home the title. The stuff I'm reading online, it doesn't feel like we're looking at any players that'll push us on even further. Well, I don't know. Look, Will I be happy with a backup keeper, Calafiori and Merino? No, I probably won't. I would be a little bit underwhelmed with that window. Like you, I was expecting definitely an addition to the attack. And if that were not to happen, I would feel that Arsenal have left a little bit out there in the transfer window this summer. I wouldn't think it would be a disaster of a window, but I still would have a lot of regret, I think, that they haven't gone and improved in the forward options. I'm not talking about a striker. I still think they need another winger option, real sort of out and out pace type player who can come on, their version of a Doku, for example, someone who could really do that sort of damage, whether it be starting, whether it be coming off the bench, just being out, or giving Saka time to rest when needed. I just feel like they need that option, and I thought this was the summer that they would go out and address that. And if they don't, and there is still 10 days to go, but if they don't, and they only end up with Mikel Merino and Calafiori and a backup keeper, I think they're probably one player short when it comes to the summer transfer window. So I think that'd be my feelings on it. Reese here says, "Hi Charles, do you think it's strange that a top club hasn't taken a gamble on Jonathan David yet? His numbers over the last 4 or 5 years have been incredible for an average Lille side. He's still young and nearing the end of his contract." I am, Reese, 100% I am. Arsenal were interested in Jonathan David. I know that for a fact. Back in the times of Raul Sinyehi, when he was leading the transfer business at Arsenal, I know they were interested and have been monitoring him. I haven't heard that interest is still alive by any means. There's been links with Tottenham, hasn't there? Other clubs have been linked with him, but so far he still remains in France. It looks like he's going to remain in France for another season unless something happens late on in this window. And like you said, his numbers have been fantastic. He scores goals. He can play centrally. He can play out wide. And he's always a player I followed a little bit because of when I knew that Arsenal had an interest in him back a few years back. I've always followed his sort of progress pretty intently in the last few years, and I am very surprised that no one's made that move for him yet. I don't know why that would be, but yeah, I am surprised, and it'll be interesting to see if anything does happen late on in the window when it comes to Jonathan David. That's it from me, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. As always, I really do appreciate it. Anything you've agreed with in this video, anything else you want me to potentially discuss in the next couple of shows, you know what to do. Get down into the comments, leave your question, your opinion, your comment, and I'll pull some of them together and get them included in tomorrow's show. I think myself and Team News and Ticks are going to be joining up potentially for a live show tomorrow lunchtime. That is the plan at the moment. It might change, but I think that is the plan. So keep your eyes peeled for that. It might be a live show tomorrow to get involved with around the sort of lunchtime, maybe 11:30, 12 o'clock mark. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But until then, have a very good day, everyone. I will speak to you soon. Bye-bye.